Hi, welcome to Unorthodoxy, the podcast where we question the rules, roles, and narratives we've been handed about having identity and what it actually means to be human. I'm Chelsea, a therapist working at the intersection of evidence-based psychology and Eastern medicine with a functional approach to mental health and healing.
And I am Reverend Dr. Sheldon Steen, a pastor and Bible scholar with over 20 years in ministry, PhD in religion, 5 kids, tattoos, and a brewery, because faith belongs in real life.
Here we hold space for nuance. The psychological, the emotional, and the spiritual, without pretending there is a one-size-fits-all path to healing.
This isn't about quick fixes or perfect answers. It is all about honest conversations, lived experience, and making room for complexity.
If you've ever felt like you didn't quite fit into all the boxes you were given, you are in the right place.
So let's get into it.
All right, so today we're talking about where therapy and faith actually meet. So we have a therapist, we have our pastor. So when people hear therapy and faith, I'd like to pose the question of what do you think they often misunderstand?
Yeah, I think there can be a lot of potential misunderstandings. For me, thinking about it, particularly from the context of being in churches and working with church folks, Christian folks in particular, I think number one, there's been for a long time, it's getting better, but there has been a pretty clear stigma, kind of trying to keep these two things separate. That therapy is something that it's more of a secular kind of thing. And I mean, you really, if you're being faithful enough, then you really shouldn't need therapy. And if you do need therapy, then you should go to a Christian counselor, not, someone like Chelsea, for instance. Interestingly, like when I was first looking for therapists, and I've had a few over the years, and like every single therapist that I started with, I never went to a Christian counselor, but every therapist, like when I would first start with them and I'd say, I'm a pastor, and they'd be like, okay, well, just to be like, I'm not a Christian counselor. Like, I'm open to talking about all this stuff, but like, just so you know, I'm like, no. That's why I chose you. Like, I don't want a Christian counselor, which is not to say that some Christian counselors can't be great. I'm sure there's wonderful Christian counselors out there. But this question of like, where do these things meet? Where do they intersect? I think is really, really important because there can be an approach and a perspective that thinks that, well, we can just kind of pray all these things away. Like if you're depressed, like pray more, and like you're not feeling better, like what's wrong with you, right? Like you're not being faithful enough or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think that's one of the big potential pitfalls and misunderstandings, particularly coming from like the religious side, as being too insular in how we think about the connection between those two.
Yeah. And I see kind of a similar thing with therapy, right? Where it's kind of like the spirituality is sometimes missed or not talked about or underrepresented, and it's funny because I'm just thinking now about a conversation I had with a client where they were talking about, oh, I can't meditate. And through conversation and having asking them questions, they pray. And I'm like, so you're meditating.
You meditate. Yeah.
You're meditating. And she's like, really? Right. And so there's that misunderstanding. Like sometimes we use these words, so we get so
Right.
stuck in like the definition, but what is the action really looking like, right? What is meditation? Meditation is stillness of the mind, being open of the mind, being present in the moment. Well, what is prayer? It's being open with the mind. It's being present in the moment. And sure, it's asking your higher power or speaking to your higher power. But meditation is kind of the same thing. You're tapping into the universe. You're tapping into, the energy, the aura, so on and so forth. So it's like the same thing. We're just calling it different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I am particularly, when it comes to prayer, I mean, I am particularly drawn to more contemplative forms of prayer where like, I really don't see much of a distinction between meditation and prayer, exactly like you're saying that. So like at my congregation and, a lot of people all over the world practice a particular kind of prayer called centering prayer. And it is just like a Christian form of meditation. All we're trying to do, we do it every Sunday morning before worship. It's a small group of us, and we just do it for 10 minutes. We're just sitting in silence in the chapel. And the way that they teach centering prayer is you kind of choose like almost like a mantra in some ways. They call it your sacred word.
Okay.
And you're just trying to just be present, be still, be focused, like be there, right? And whenever inevitably your mind is wandering, you can just repeat that sacred word to yourself to bring you back to prayer. And you're not trying to accomplish anything. You're not necessarily, this isn't the kind of prayer where you're asking God for particular things. You are just trying to be present with God and trusting that whether you feel God's presence or not, God is there with you, which again, like that's meditation, baby.
That it
There's
totally
no
is.
difference.
It totally is, and it links into a therapeutic intervention called mindfulness, right? Which is like just
Yes.
being non-judgmental. And one of the things that I personally practice when I do my mindful meditation is I give myself a mantra, a
Hmm.
word, which lately has been stay. And when my
Ooh.
mind wanders, I just
Yep. Yes.
stay still,
Yes.
stay present,
Yes.
stay focused, stay intentional, because I tend to be like a hamster on a wheel sometimes. And so that has been, and so it's so interesting because I'm not from Christian faith. And so I've been exposed to it, but I mean, obviously nowhere near you. And so I've never heard of this before. And as you were talking, like this kind of just segues perfectly into where therapy and faith actually meet.
Yes.
It's so similar and it's so coincides so beautifully.
Yeah, and I'd be curious kind of how you think about particularly the mindfulness and meditation and like how you coach people through it, because I think part of what I've finally realized over the course of the last couple of years of really trying to cultivate like a genuine spiritual life and spiritual practice is that there's a way of thinking about mindfulness and meditation in which you're doing all of that kind of non-judgment, not adding value judgments to anything for that 20-minute period or however long you're doing it. And you're kind of recharging your batteries so that you can then go face the world. When I think the more powerful intervention or way of just kind of thinking about it is like you're learning important lessons in the meditation and in prayer about how to deal with those thoughts, not just in meditation, but in your regular life, right? To recognize that these are just thoughts and I just let them pass me by, right? I can use this word to like stay, right? The perfect example. I can use this word to let these thoughts just go. But if I'm only doing that for the 20 minutes that I'm in prayer or meditation and I'm not transferring that into my daily life, then we're kind of missing something. Does that make sense? I mean, does that
Yeah.
track with how you think about it?
It does. I also think about it too, because it also, so in my opinion, and I think a lot of other therapists would agree, especially my somatic and polyvagal therapists, where it helps with the nervous system and calming the nervous system. And so even though we might just try and use it while we're in that moment, it's still regulating you on a cellular level, right? It's
Totally,
bringing
totally.
down your heart rate, your blood pressure, all these things, the vagus nerve, like all these things. And so I think even if you're not consciously being mindful outside of meditation, I think it is setting your body up
Yeah,
for
that's a great point.
dealing and being a little bit more resilient towards stressors and activating events, just because you're lowering and dealing with, I guess, your nervous system and helping
Yeah.
regulate is the word I was looking for, regulate your nervous system a little bit better.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful point because you are giving your nervous system that wonderful reset in those moments and just bringing everything down. Yeah, just all of the vagus nerve stuff is just endlessly fascinating. Like I had no idea that was even a thing. It's like, oh, okay. Turns out it's super freaking important. Okay.
Yeah, very important. I actually just started my training for polyvagal therapy,
Nice.
so
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Right on.
Um, but yeah, so I think that it's super important. And one of the things that I work on with my clients now is finding like little pockets, because I think sometimes when people think of like even prayer, but meditation is like you have to sit down in a dark room with candles and incense and like take an hour and have the Om
Yeah.
music and you have to carve out this time. And I'm like, no, we don't have time, right? So many of us are full-time employees, which is not what it used to be. And some of us
Hmm.
have two jobs. Some of us are, single parents and like things like that. We don't have time, hamster on a wheel, right? So where can you find these pockets of time to regulate your nervous system, to activate, that calm? And so one of my favorite things to do, especially with women who have hair or men who have hair, is when you're washing your hair in the shower, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
take
Nice.
that to be
Nice.
mindful movement, intentional, calm space. You have to do it anyway. We usually do it robotically. You're already in there. It's already like a really relaxing state. You've got the hot water. You
Yep.
can turn off the fart fan. Like you can just like let it be, put some nice music on. You're already in the
I'm
shower.
sorry. I'm sorry. The fart fan.
Yeah,
I've
that
never
thing that
heard that
makes that
before.
noise. Like
Oh
you
no,
put
I
it
get
on.
it.
Yeah, okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You've never heard it called
referred
a
to
fart
as the
fan?
fart fan. I'm in love with it. I'll never forget it. I'm going to use that from now on every day of my life. Thank you for that. What a
Babe, turn
gift.
the fart fan on. Yeah.
God, that's
We got a
fantastic.
hook.
Oh my
Yes.
word.
Anyway, you're in there anyway, washing your hair. Make it mindful,
Yeah.
make it meditative, make
Yeah.
it,
And
yeah.
probably no one's going to bother you while you're.
Unless you have a 2-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said probably. There are
Probably.
exceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are exceptions for sure. But
Yeah.
no, you're right. Taking advantage of where are those little moments that you can steal, you know?
Yeah.
Um, even while you're driving in your car, you know, like that's one thing that because I do a lot of driving all across town because the church I serve is on one end of town and the brewery that I work at is on the other end of town. And so I have been very, very intentional lately of just driving in silence and just trying to kind of just be in that kind of place where I'm paying attention to my breath and I'm just fully present. And I mean, it's pretty remarkable what can happen when you do that regularly. For instance, Chelsea, like I am so fascinated by the sky now in a way that I never have been before, just because I'm like noticing it, you know, like literally I'll just be driving and I turn a corner, I'm like, oh my God, like it just blown away, right?
Yeah.
Like because I'm figuring out how to be more present in those moments and not just having music or a podcast or something to distract me, not getting angry at the people around me for, you know, driving like maniacs, just being present and chill. Like it's pretty remarkable what can happen when you do steal those moments wherever you can.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This question also came up. I can't remember what the origin of it, but it's talking about like how do you work with clients who have faith but also feel angry, doubtful, or disconnected from it? And I think both of you and I personally have gone through this.
Hmm.
So I guess as a religious leader, I had that question for you, and then of course I can like tap into it from a therapeutic standpoint.
Yeah. I think, you know, for the longest time, I've said, I've always said that like doubt is not a bad thing when it comes to faith, you know, and I've come even further now where I think that doubt is actually necessary. And if we're in faith communities that don't allow us the freedom to express those doubts and to have those doubts, then I mean, it is going to like, there's going to be a lot of repressed stuff, right? Which is going to just snowball. And all of a sudden your theological question, your theological issue becomes a mental health issue, right? Like it can very, very easily happen in that way. And so I think being involved in communities and having people around you, even if maybe you've left the church altogether, which I totally get that, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever faith tradition you're a part of. I don't begrudge people for doing that because typically when people leave churches or whatever faith community or tradition, it's because they've been harmed, right? Like it's because they've experienced some kind of harm or even trauma. And it's yeah, there should be a lot more grace for those kind of people, I think, from religious folk. And there should be just a lot more encouragement of all of those things because the only way through it is through it, you know,
Yeah.
like there's just no way around it. If we are not actively encouraging those questions and the expression of those things, like no wonder the church is dying. Like the church is dying right now. Every single Christian denomination is in a state of decline at
Really?
this particular moment. Yes, every single one. That wasn't always the case until relatively recent. There are some potential trends that suggest other things may be shifting, whatever. But in general, every single church is in decline, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Of course, we could probably go down the list and not even get to all of them. But I think this is a really big piece of it is because there needs to be authenticity behind it and a faith that completely excludes those questions and those doubts and all of those things is completely inauthentic and doesn't allow for the full expression of humanity to come through our faith. And again, like all of those things connect to mental health because if you feel like you're not allowed to ask those questions, it's just going to drive you further and further into a place of I don't know, darkness, whatever language we might use, but it's not going to be good.
Where do you think these people are going?
A lot of them are just not, they're not going to other churches or anything. They're just leaving, you know,
Yeah.
and it's the unfortunate thing about it for me is church at its best, like religious communities at their best are a place of community, a place of belonging, a place where people are valued for who they are as they are. And we're seeking to grow together. It's a third space in the world that you just don't get really almost anywhere else. Like I love about church that our kids have had surrogate grandparents all of their lives, right? Surrogate aunts and uncles all of their lives. And it's beautiful. And we've been a part of some beautiful church communities. Not every church community is like that, unfortunately. So a lot of people are just choosing not to go anywhere else. And, maybe they go for a hike on a Saturday morning. Maybe they sit at home and watch football or scroll on their phone, doom scroll. I don't know. They're typically not going to other faith communities because, again, why would they? Like,
Right.
they got burned, they got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I see this a lot, and I saw this in my own journey too, just kind of being angry with
Hmm.
my higher power, but with my clients, like I really preach this like mind body spirit aspect of
Yeah.
it. And so
Yeah.
it's like when one is off, they're all off. And so spirituality, whether it's a religious faith, it's a spirituality, it's like whatever the faith is, like I really do try and hone in on that. And so if I have a client that comes angry or doubtful or disconnected from their spiritual self, like we need to work on that because that is
Yeah.
so deeply
Yeah.
rooted into your mental health, right? Like if your soul, if
Yeah.
your energy,
Yeah.
if your aura is not happy, is not connected to whether you believe in mother nature, right? Like we're all
Hmm.
cellularly connected if that's your belief.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
not necessarily coming from it in a religious text, but the spiritual component, right? And so that is
Totally.
faith, right? Like that's having
Yes.
faith in something greater than you. That's having faith. Even sometimes that leads to losing faith of self. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
really reestablishing that sense of faith in a higher power, in yourself, in your community, that kind of stuff. Really getting back and connected to that, I think, is deep work that I do,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
clients.
Well, and I love that because, I mean, that's your point about the mind, body, spirit thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff, particularly the spirit and the spiritual side. That's the kind of stuff that I couldn't hear from you at first, when I first was your client, right? Because
Mhm.
I was in a place, I was in that, that dark night of the soul kind of place where my faith had been gone for a long time. Even though I was still serving in ministry as a pastor, just parroting what I thought what I was supposed to do for the most part. And to be able, and that, I mean, that is the thing, like, whatever healing I have experienced over these last couple of years, it's because of that aspect of my life far more than anything.
Yeah.
Because once you get that moving in the right direction, everything else just kind of starts to fall into place so much more easily, right? I mean, there's a reason that, like, AA, for instance, and all sorts of recovery groups begin with the recognition that I am powerless over this thing,
Yep.
right? And whatever I'm going to call that higher power, I have to surrender it to that. Maybe lots of people use the word God. Great. If that works for you, go for it. But exactly as you're saying, whatever works for you, use
Yeah.
it. Just recognize that you can't do it on your own, I think is
Yes.
kind of the big thing.
Yes. And when I was working actually with that population, with the substance abuse
Hmm.
population, a lot of the people were so broken that they didn't even want to say the word God. And I was like, fine,
Yeah.
group of
Yeah.
drunks. This room is a group of
Yes.
drunks. They are more powerful than you. Like that was
Oh,
that
that's
was what we
awesome.
did. And
Exactly.
me
Exactly.
personally, when I was on
Yeah.
my journey, I called it SOTU, Spirit of the Universe.
Nice.
Right? And
Nice.
so when people came to me and they were so broken about it, I would say, listen, go to the beach because we're coastal over here. Go to the beach
Hmm.
and try and tell the waves to stop. Just tell them to stop. They will stop, right? And they're like, no, of course they won't. And I'm like,
It's
right.
beautiful.
There's a power that's greater than
Yes.
you,
It's
even if
beyond
it
you. Yeah.
is the ocean waves and the
Yeah.
surf and the tide.
Yes.
It's greater than you. And so it doesn't have to be like this holy, guy in the sky, like religious, like it doesn't have to be that to tap into your faith. And so that's kind of where I would start with people and just like
Hmm.
get there. And then, of course, it would grow into something obviously a little bit more faithful and spiritual and sometimes even more
Yeah.
religious.
Yeah.
And I know for me personally, like it has brought me back to like my religious roots, which is Judaism, and I'm
Hmm.
back in the temple. I'm not going usually for Shabbos and stuff, but my daughter was in a Hebrew school and I go to, the Tot Shabbat and like I'm a little bit more active
Yeah.
than I was before, but definitely more in my beliefs. I've gotten a lot deeper into it
That's
since
cool.
becoming a mom for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, it is amazing what the simple recognition of things that are beyond you, right? Just recognizing that there are things that are out of your control, that are out of your power, because so many of the problems that we face are exactly like we are trying to control and manipulate the entire environment around us and make it exactly what we need it to be in order to be happy. And
uh-huh.
guess what? it is never going to be what we need it to be in order to be happy, at least not for more than like 10 minutes at a time,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
going to change real quick.
Right.
So no matter how terrible things are, this too shall pass. No matter how great things are, this
This
too
too
shall
shall
pass,
pass.
right?
Yes. Yes. And it's so okay. So it's funny that you say that. And I'm going to quote an author, John Maxwell, who's also a pastor, but he wrote like a bunch of leadership books. And he talks about this 24-hour rule. You have 24 hours to feel sad about the thing that didn't go right. Anything more
Mm,
than that, you're wallowing. But on the flip side, you have 24 hours to celebrate the thing that did go
celebrate.
right.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
more than that, you're gloating. And I just love
Yes.
that. I
Right.
just think it's so beautiful. Obviously, it's not a rigid 24 hours, but just the
Of
concept of
course.
it, like, this is going to pass. We're going to move on to the next thing. Like, feel it, enjoy it, or don't enjoy it,
Hmm.
but feel it and then
Yes.
move on.
Right.
Yeah.
And let it pass through
Let it
you and
pass.
keep going. Yeah. I mean, that
Yes.
sounds like a kind of a right sizing of the ego,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. That's great. I love that.
So there's not really a good segue for this, but this is just another question that did come up. Sometimes faith can like complicate healing. And if you believe that that's true, when do you think that that might happen? And for our listeners, feel free to like put this in the comment box, like any of these questions that we're talking about, put your
Please.
answers, like comment, like let us know. We'll have a conversation about it virtually as well. But Sheldon, I ask you about this too.
I think when faith is an easy answer to kind of do an end run around the hard work is when it makes things worse. Um, we, again, particularly Christians, maybe other faith traditions as well. I speak about Christians because I know them. That's my tradition. We just have so many cliched phrases and things that like people just go to rather than looking at the thing in the face, right? Like we can, like when it's like, say there's a tragic death in the community, how quickly people rush to, well, this was God's plan, like God needed another angel or like some other terrible, awful thing that even if it's true is not helpful, right? Like it's just not helpful. A, I don't think it's true, but B, even if it is, it's not helpful, particularly for someone who is in grief. And it is again, it's a way to, we might call it spiritual bypassing, right? You're bypassing the hard work and falling back on a trite cliche that just doesn't help actually move us or anyone closer to healing and like doing the hard work. Like, I mean, like you said, like we've got to let these emotions, these experiences like fully move through our bodies. We can't push them away because if they don't, they get stuck and they get caught in there and we get into real trouble. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. What do you think about that?
It's kind of the same thing, like pray it away, let go, let God, like the sayings, right? Like where it complicates healing in a sense when it sometimes is used to avoid the pain,
Yeah,
right? When
exactly.
you're kind of
Exactly.
skirting around it versus going through it. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't see it as much, but I think it's probably because I'm not a religious leader and I am
Right,
a
right.
therapist. So I
Go
don't
to
think
church, dude. It's all over the place.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think that people are coming to me going, "Oh, well, it's God's way." Like they're usually coming to me going, "I need therapy." So
Yeah, because they've come to a breaking point at that point.
right, exactly.
Yeah, which
Exactly.
hallelujah. I mean, and I do think that it's important to recognize that there is a certain element of like a necessary breakdown, right? Like a necessary falling that has to take place in order for us to let go of those things, in order for us to, not try to continue to just grab control of the wheel and assume that we can control anything at all. At least this certainly is the case for me. Like I would not have taken the shift that I have taken over these last couple of years, if not for an absolutely just epic breakdown where I just completely fell apart and thought that this was basically the end. You know what I mean? And so hopefully not everyone has to get to such an extreme kind of place of just feeling like you're completely in a deep dark hole, but also like that's the best thing that ever happened to me because it's only from that any kind of healing is able to take place from there. So yeah, I do think there's a necessary falling down that we all have to go through and just accept and embrace.
Yeah, because if you never break down, you can't rebuild, right? And
Absolutely.
so if you're never
Yes.
breaking down, you're staying stagnant. And we know what
Yes.
happens to stagnant water.
Yes, we do. It gets real nasty. You need to turn the fart fan on for that.
I don't even think that'll help.
No, it won't. But to put that in like kind of theological terms, there's no resurrection without death. right? Like that's the whole story. And again, particularly modern American Christianity, we love to do an end round around the dying part, and just do the Easter celebration, resurrection, empty tomb, and place it all in like you've got to believe in this thing, and then everything's going to be fine. It's like, okay, well, I've been trying to believe in it, and it's still not fine. Like, well, because we haven't died yet, right? Like,
Right. Right.
I mean, Jesus said, like, you've got to die to yourself daily. And like, it's amazing to like hear those words now on the other side of all of this to be like, oh, like he was pointing the way the whole freaking time, man. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like we just got to let that ego stuff just die and be willing to go through, do the hard work, because that's where the resurrection comes.
And it's so interesting how that parallels on such a global
Yeah.
level, right? If you
Yes.
look at Mother Nature in and of itself,
Exactly right.
I mean,
Exactly
not
right.
so much down here in South Florida, but like you have winter
Right.
months. Like what happens during the winter? Like the leaves shrivel, they die, they fall off. You have these skeleton trees, right? Like
Yes.
animals go into hibernation, like whatever. And like that is like that. It's a death. Like it's not a true death, but it is.
Right.
And we
But it
have these
is. That's the
cycles.
pattern.
And then
Yes.
you have springtime and you have the new growth
Yes.
and all the babies are being born,
Yes.
right? Like it's a whole
Totally.
thing. And like I think I always use the butterfly and the chrysalis, right? Or the moth and the cocoon, whatever way. And yeah, like you're no longer the caterpillar.
Right.
You have a
Right.
complete rebuild. And so we see so many examples of this in the earth alone. So it doesn't
Yes.
have to be like, I
Yes.
mean, for you, yes, but like for the
Yeah.
masses, it
Right.
doesn't have
Right.
to be about Jesus. Like
Exactly
if this
right.
Jew can
Exactly right.
understand it, like, you know what I mean? By the way, that's why Jews are always early because we don't want to miss another thing.
That's beautiful. I love it.
I
But
always
no,
say
you're
that's the
exactly
only
right.
difference between Jews and Christians is 15 minutes.
Right.
Like we
Right.
just missed the resurrection and now we don't believe it happened.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry,
That is
gotta throw a
awesome.
little humor in there.
Amen. Amen. But no, you're exactly right. And I think like that's part of the point for me is, and that's what I love to point out, like at Easter time is like actually this whole story isn't about this one thing that happened one time 2,000 years ago. Go outside and look around. Like it's particularly during Easter time, like spring is springing, right? There is new life bursting forth everywhere. And it is only because of that cycle and that pattern of death, life, death, and
Life,
new
death, and
life,
rebirth.
right? Like that's how this goes. And all Jesus is doing in that story or in that experience is recreating that pattern.
Yes.
Like nature is always the best teacher. Like hands down, nature is always the best teacher. You want to get closer to whatever your higher power is, go sit in nature for 10 minutes without your phone and just observe.
I
Like
love the
just
without your
observe.
phone. We have to say that now. Without your phone.
We really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the best teacher. Yeah.
It really is. And, so my population that I work with predominantly now is like new families, like new moms, new dads,
Mm-hmm.
perinatal certified and women especially, yes, men do it too, but women really talk about like how they don't recognize themselves, how they feel like they're a totally different person, they whatever, and to some extent, like they had a rebirth, like they grew a
Yeah.
whole new organ to house a whole new
Right.
person, like their brain
Right.
chemistry changed, their DNA
Yeah.
changed, like on a
Uh-huh.
cellular level they are different. And it's that death and rebirth, right? Because
Yes.
nothing will
Yes.
test you more than childbirth.
I understand, not experientially, but I'm
Well,
sure
you
that
have
is true.
enough children to have
Yeah,
experience.
that's true too. Yeah, I just didn't push them out of me.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is important, and I think I'd love to hear from the listeners, what are your thoughts on this? Like how does spirituality show up in your life? How does religion show up in your life? Are you one of the people that have left your religious institution because you were hurt? Are you afraid to talk to a therapist about your spirituality? How do you know you feel comfortable? Like let's talk about it, comment about it. What would you say to someone who feels like they're doing healing wrong because they're still struggling?
Wow, what a great question. Man, why do you ask me questions like that? That's
I'm
super good.
sorry.
Yeah.
You're the one with the master's PhD. Like,
But, in history, No, okay, what would I say to someone who feels like they're doing healing wrong because like they're still suffering, they're still struggling? I mean, I don't want to say I don't think you can do healing wrong because there's probably things that we might think are helpful that are harmful. But I think I would ask people, what I would suggest is to ask yourself, like, what is it that you're clinging to? What are you holding on to that you are terrified to let go of? Because if you let go of it, you don't know what that means for you, right? And then figure out how to let it go. It doesn't mean you have to let it go now, right? But just try to do that kind of work of like, what is it that you're clinging to? Is it this control thing? Are you trying to control and manipulate, the world around you and the people around you? And one of the things you taught me, Chelsea, was that manipulation can look very, very different. Like it's not always that like very direct kind of, in the typical ways we think of manipulation, but the very act of trying to get people to be different and better, however we do that, can be manipulative. And so, like, yeah, what is it that you're clinging to? What are the attachments that you have that are potentially holding you back? And again, like for most of us, like even if you can't think of anything huge right off the bat, like start with your phone and the attention that you give to social media, to news and headlines and politics. Like those things are important. It's important for us to be informed and aware of what's going on. It is not important for us to doom scroll. Like it's just not. So like even if you can't think of like some big giant thing, like you can take very small steps. We all know baseline what some very, very helpful things are. Maybe it's cutting back on your alcohol consumption. Maybe you've got other addictions that are more, palatable socially, that are less obvious and less like clearly harmful. And like again, like take a deep look inside and see what those things are. You don't have to change them tomorrow. It's okay. Like be gentle with yourself, take your time, but also be very clear-eyed about what it is that you need to start letting go of. I guess that's where I would start. What do you think?
So I have twofold like sides of this. Like, yes, I agree with
Hmm.
everything you're saying, but then the other side of it, I'm like, well, why is healing equate to easy?
Oh, amen. Whew,
Right?
that's good.
Like
Yes. Oh, it's not easy.
sometimes we have to struggle while we heal. It is
Yes.
messy. And so, because I'm a therapist, I'm like, well, what do we mean by struggling? Like, let's unpack that, right? Like, what are we doing, right? So, yes, it's
Yes.
kind of a straightforward answer, but it's also not because it's so individualized. So, to that person, well, why does it feel like it's wrong? What does the struggle look like? Are there things like what Sheldon, like what you were talking about? Are there things that are getting in their way? And then, like, can we remove some of those things, right? But what does the
Hmm.
struggle look like? What does the struggle feel like? Is it just normal, I'm healing, so it's hard? Or is it, I'm trying to heal, but I'm not letting go of the things that are holding me back from healing, so I'm still struggling?
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. No, you're absolutely right, because healing is hard. Like it is hard work and it's going to hurt a lot at times. And that is part of this whole like we would love to be able to like meditate every day for 6 months, have some kind of enlightenment experience. And all of a sudden I'm happy and everything's perfect and it's never bad again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's just not how it works, man. Like, I don't know, maybe if you're Eckhart Tolle, I don't know, but most of us are not. So like, you're going to have to do the hard work probably,
Yeah.
and it's going to hurt. Like
Yeah,
it's gonna hurt
it is.
because we have all established patterns. We have developed tactics that served us at a particular time to survive the hell of the world that we needed to survive. But now we have grown up, at least age-wise, and we are still leaning on those same tactics and those same patterns that are now, at the time we're adaptive, they are now maladaptive. And we need to be able to, again, to look at those things and then do the really hard work of being able to let those things go. And it is going to hurt. It is not going to be easy, period. You're
No,
absolutely right.
especially when some of those things had positive benefits, right? Like they were
Correct.
helping us in
Yeah.
some way and now it's no longer
Yes.
helpful. Like it's so hard to
Yes.
let that go, to take the mask off, to break yourself open. Like that's painful.
It's really hard. And this is what I love about the whole like internal family systems approach is it's recognizing that there are these different parts of you that developed at a particular time and period in your life that were helpful. Like you needed them. It's not that you need to be ashamed of it. Whatever the thing is, you don't need to be ashamed of it. In fact, what you need to do is go like find that little part that's inside of you somewhere, that little, inner child. And there's a bunch of them in there. There's a bunch of them. There's
I
too many
know.
of them because we've all been through some stuff. And go find that little kid and be like, thank you for what you did. I appreciate how you were helpful in that time and place, but we've grown up now and we don't need to do that anymore. And I'm here I can be in control. I can be in charge. You can trust me, like bringing healing to that particular kind of part. And again, recognizing that it's not a bad thing. Like it was a good thing in some ways at that time. You needed it to survive, but now you don't, and it's getting in the way of your growth. It's getting in the way of your happiness. It's getting in the way of your ability to be fully present to life, to your family, to your friends, to whatever you need to be present to.
Yes. Yes. Very well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending this time with us on unorthodoxy.
If something in today's conversation resonated, we invite you to sit with it. Not fix it, not rush, just notice it and notice what it stirred.
Yeah, healing isn't about certainty. It's about curiosity, compassion, and staying connected to yourself.
And of course, you do not have to have it all figured out to be doing meaningful work. Also, make sure you like and subscribe.
We'll see you next time.